So, Michael, of course, the new The Batman is out in cinemas. And I love this headline from an article about the movie, which I saw. This is from Emma Stefanski. My favourite thing about The Batman is how absolutely disgusting Gotham City is. And it's from the website Thrillist.com. In The Batman, Gotham City is finally as gross as they say. Now, that's interesting. Have a guess. You may already know, but have a guess in which city The Batman was actually filmed in.
I mean, I guess it's going to be an interesting answer.
Yeah, it's not. I'll give you a clue. It's not in America.
Oh, okay.
So there you go.
Is it like a Mexican city?
No.
European city?
It is a European city, yes.
London?
No. As disgusting a city as one can imagine.
Oh, is it like Moscow or something?
No. Moscow's nice.
No, sorry, I just thought because that would be like a politics thing, you know?
No, nothing to do with politics. A disgusting, grimy Gotham.
Is it, so because of who you are, I'm thinking maybe is it Liverpool?
It's not Liverpool, no.
Okay. And I mean, obviously I don't live in a city, so it's nothing to do with me.
Yes.
So I'm just obviously I know there's going to be a point. I'm just trying to work out what the point is.
It is in Britain. You got that right.
Oh, it is a British city.
Yes.
And it's
what do you think is the most horrendous, awful, grimy city in the UK you can imagine?
Like Glasgow?
Yes, you got it right. There we go. I love that. Well done. Oh, that's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, that is funny. Yeah, it's just like when you prompted me with that, I was just like,
amazing, fucking amazing. That's great. So yeah, the Batman being filmed in Glasgow, and it has paid off because of how disgusting Glasgow is here. Accentuates the nature of the Gotham City in the movie. But yeah, anyway, Michael, that's good. Let's get into Judas and the Black Messiah, shall we?
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke. And this week we are celebrating the forthcoming Oscars by looking at those films which are nominated for Best Picture in last year's Oscars. We took a little break from it, but we've returned back to it with flying colours, or whatever people say. And we're looking at the film Judas and the Black Messiah. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Judas and the Black Messiah?
Yes, I will, Michael. Yes, I will. And of course you are correct in the fact that this movie was nominated for Best Picture at the 2021 Academy Awards, even though it was released in what year?
It was released in the year 2021.
Yeah, that's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
But no, of course, COVID fucked things up a bit. So here we go. Judas and the Black Messiah is a 2021 American biographical crime drama film about the betrayal of Fred Hampton, of course, played by Daniel Kahlua. It also stars Lakeith Stanfield. How do you say that name properly, Michael?
Well, see, I would think it would just be Lakeith.
I think it is Lakeith.
Because it's it's just Keith with La, but yeah. The thing is, I've been feeling really guilty about this because a year ago, I think I was saying Lakeith when we did our Oscars predictions video for, the Oscars where Judas and Black Messiah was nominated for. And I called him Lakeith. And then you said, I'm pretty sure it's Lakeith. And then I was like, no, I did say Lakeith because it obviously is Lakeith. But I had been saying Lakeith. So yeah, it's a fucking character arc for me to admit that, I guess. Yeah.
So it also stars Jesse Plemons, who apparently is in everything. Dominique Fishback. That's a great name. That's a fucking great name. Dominique Fishback. Ashton Sanders, decent name. Darrell Britt Gibson. These are some great names here. Lil Rev Howery. Wow, they just keep coming.
Whoa.
Algie Smith, not so good.
Yeah.
Dominique Thorne, that's a good name.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Martin Sheen, of course. Was he one of the black characters, Martin Sheen?
Oh, no. I think not.
No, he wasn't, was he? Anyway, so do you know which character he played, actually? Because they never actually said his name. Maybe they did, I can't remember.
Did he play the guy who was like the big guy at the top of the FBI?
Yeah, do you remember his name?
Like Gorgelberg. I don't know why I said that.
Did you just say Berg at the end, you racist?
I know, yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure. I thought,
wow.
The thing is, I think it's like, okay, so the thing is, I feel like it is a name that's kind of like a...
I went to Washington, D.C. I remember I took a picture of a building with his name on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh.
It's probably some fucking security building in Washington, D.C. It's J.
Edgar Hoover?
Edgar Hoover. There you go, you got it. Well done. Congratulations.
Not Googleberg.
Yes, not fucking Googleberg. Anyway, so Judas and the Black Messiah was released on February the 12th, 2021 in the United States. And of course, Michael, we have to guess the book. Oh, by the way, I think it was done then because of Black History Month. That's what I would assume.
When is White History Month?
When is White History Month? That is the question.
Joke.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, budget, Michael. How much did this cost to make?
Not much. It cost 8. Goodness me. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't think it cost, like I say, much. But having said that, I'm not sure how much a film like this would have been kind of expected to cost. My brain, I said 8, and I was about to say like 8 million because I'm like, that seems like it could be possible. I think you could film this film for 8 million, but I don't know. I mean, there's lots of shooting and stuff, so maybe it goes into double digits. I mean, if you say it's more than 20 million, I would be like, I would think that was a lot.
Come on, let's have a guess.
Okay, you know what? I'll say 10 million.
Finally, we get another mark on Michael's thing because he went
too low.
Less than half. Less than half. Somehow, there we go. He went less than half because Michael, of course, in actual fact, this movie cost 26 million to make.
Okay, yeah. That's I mean, again,
you've got some good actors in this. Obviously, Daniel Kahlua, and Lakeith Stanfield. You know, pretty high profile actors. Well, you know, wouldn't be cheap to hire them, and of course Martin Sheen and Jesse Plemons as well. You know, so yeah, good supporting cast. Well, I say supporting cast. There's the irony with this whole fucking movie regarding who was nominated for best supporting actor. If let me tell you, Michael, if Daniel Kahlua and Lakeith Stanfield play the two main characters,
how are they supporting actors?
Both of them. Anyway, so what's the box office, Michael?
Yeah, well, I mean, this I literally have even less of an idea. I mean, so like in the past with these kind of films, it's been like in the hundreds of thousands. So, you know, this time will probably be the exception, but like a lot of the time they've been below 1 million. So, and they've even been like considerably below. So I'm going to go for...
When were those movies released?
Well, I guess they were released kind of like...
Sound of Metal and Trial of the Chicago 7?
Yeah, I guess they were released autumn 2020?
Yes, and they were also released on Netflix and Amazon Prime. This was
okay.
not released on Netflix or Amazon
so this was
Prime.
only released at theatres?
Yes, exactly. So
okay. Thank you for that information, because, I didn't... All right, in that case, this film probably made more. I mean, but then, like, how much... Oh, see, that kind of makes it almost more difficult. Like, how much then would this film have made? Like, would people want to go out and risk COVID? You know... I mean, you know, I'm not saying
this is a very good film.
Yeah, I would say these things. Yeah, I'm not saying this isn't a good film, but like, this isn't the kind of film. Like, obviously, this film isn't going to compete with like the blockbusters. I would assume
it isn't Spider-Man: No Way Home levels of enthusiasm.
But you know, I'm going to say that it probably made more than its budget back. Probably not a huge amount, so maybe a little bit more than its budget back. So maybe like, I'm thinking like 50-60 million.
Oh no!
I think like 50-60 million is about what it made. I'm thinking like, yeah, I'm really, you know, I can tell that you're like coaxing me to continue going on this 50-60 million kind of mark.
Unfortunately, you know, So the thing is, the actual box office intake was $7.1 million.
Oh, you razzed me so hard.
The thing is that Trial of the Chicago 7, Sound of Metal, they were like in the hundreds of thousands. I believe.
So I mean, obviously, it's a jump up, but
so I was like, okay, he'll be like, oh, it won't, because you know it's in the pandemic, so it won't be, you know, small, but no way it's making its budget back. You know, it'll be in the small millions. I thought he'd guess, but no, you of course went over, so that is an O, and that is a double. You guessed less than half for the budget and more than double for the box office, which is the first time
double.
you have done that. So yeah, according to you, this movie would make massive profit.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I will say that actually I probably wouldn't have guessed as high. Admittedly, like in a way, like the budget kind of pushed up my estimation of the box office, which is kind of not, you know, there's not really a logic there. Like the thing is, if this film had only cost 8 million, I probably would have guessed like 14 million or like 15 million.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, you would have just got under the threshold then. But anyway, so let's get into Judas and the Black Messiah, the actual movie. Michael, did you like Judas and the Black Messiah?
I did like this film. There's one thing I'm aware of, which is that I also like I like Fred Hampton personally. We're on like a good, you know, we're kind of buddies. Obviously I think he's like
Fred Hampton Jr. exists.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, and I'd like to think we would be buddies. But no, yeah, like obviously I admire him and respect him and would pretty much almost, you know, at least on the broad details, you know, maybe we disagree on some minor stuff.
Follow him into battle.
Yeah, I would follow. Yeah, I would follow Fred Hampton into battle. I would join that weird kind of Confederate flag people just so I could be a white guy fighting alongside him. So I like Fred Hampton. The question is, I'm kind of like, what I was thinking during this film is like, do I really just like this film because I like who it's about? And the answer is, I mean, obviously, like, the thing is, this film is still competently made. Like, no matter what, this film is well made. It's good. I think a lot of the reason why I was very enthused about this film is because I liked who it was about. But yeah, I mean, I definitely like the film unambiguously because either way, it's a good biopic. In terms of like how much I liked it, I'm not sure if the film was necessarily like fantastic and more kind of just like it was about a really interesting person. That, you know, obviously isn't for nothing. But, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say this film's like kind of an incredibly, in some sense, this film is a bit like just a standard biopic. You know, it just tells the story.
You know
of
what?
this person.
I'm going to jump in here and say I disagree. I think it's a very good movie, but I do see where you're coming from. It's competent. It tells the story well. It's got some good character arcs in there. But yeah, it's sorry, it's not really it's not a transcendent movie, you know. Yeah, and but that's fine. It is. I mean, I'm looking at the poster.
We're not racist, by the way. I just think we should stress that.
I'm looking at the poster right now. It says one of the best films of the year, and I'll be like, yeah, absolutely. It's not the best film of the year. Obviously, when we finish reviewing all of last year's Oscars, we'll put it in. In
Although
order.
it's worth noting again, this was from 2021, so when this came out, there'd only been January releases. When you technically think about it, but I guess like spiritually, this film is from 2020 because it was in the 2021 Oscars.
Yeah, no, you're right. So yeah, one of the best films of the year. There's only been 6 released, I guess. Yeah, but no, I think it's very good. I think I am frustrated by some elements of it, where they could have gone further. Where there's a theme that could be explored, where they could go further, and unfortunately they didn't. And like you say, you know, Fred Hampton, you know, everyone who, you know, holds our political beliefs can admire him. And again, that's where some of the frustration comes from. I do think, but yeah, and we'll get onto that when we talk about Fred Hampton in this movie. But first, Michael, nitpicks, lit picks, how many you got?
Well, I don't have any nitpicks at all. I feel like, I mean, you've mentioned before the idea of like, how can you nitpick reality? And obviously sometimes you can, but in this case, I couldn't do it at all. Like there was nothing in there. I was like, yeah.
And I have a lit pick there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so my lit pick is as follows. So Bobby Seale gets a mention, of course. You know, we have a sketch of him being gagged in the Chicago courtroom. J. Edgar Hoover, played by Martin Sheen, makes the joke about, it must be cold in the Chicago courtroom.
Hilarious.
Yes, really, really, really funny. But yeah.
Martin Sheen's a racist.
Obviously, like we saw in the trial of the Chicago 7, but the reason why this is a lit pick is because we're comparing it directly to the trial of the Chicago 7. In that movie, Bobby Seale gets gagged because of the fact Fred Hampton dies, or because he's angry at it and he can't contain his emotions. Of course, Fred Hampton is still alive in this movie when Bobby Seale gets gagged, which is, of course, what actually happened in real life. Yeah,
this was a real, like, they really dunked on a Chicago 7.
Oh, they did. They definitely did. And if you think about it with, you know, Bobby Seale, I think I mentioned this in our Trial of the Chicago 7 review, Bobby Seale getting gagged, you know, there doesn't have to be a reason as, like, he's so angry. Like, it's just the situation he was in meant that he was, like, angry enough. Like, he had the right to complain. Like, he was on trial without a lawyer, which was just fucking crazy. He didn't need, like, Fred Hampton's death for him to, like, go or get angry, which, of course, then caused the court to gag him. Obviously that is something that, you know, I appreciate this film just correcting the record, I guess. I wonder if other people watched, like, Trial of the Chicago 7 and Judas and the Black Messiah back to back and were like, wait a minute, so did Bobby Seale get gagged when, you know, and they thought, was that which film is right? And I hope they would have bet on this movie because it is a better movie and they would be right to. But anyway, so let's get into Judas and the Black Messiah, Michael. Of course, like I said, the reason why we are doing this is because it was nominated for Best Picture at the 2021 Academy Awards. Because of its timely themes, which we'll get onto. Its timely themes. Yeah. So the film earned 6 Oscar nominations at the 93rd Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Supporting Actor for both Kahlua and Stanfield. Wait, like we said,
2 supporting actors?
Well, who's the fucking main actor then?
Yeah.
Fucking this is, again, we'll get into this in the plot. And of course, who won Best Supporting Actor?
Yeah, Daniel Kahlua. I mean, I remember this because I said that I thought Lakeith Stanfield would win because I thought he, like, brought more to the table in terms of his performance. And you were like, but the thing is, there were lots of people who were like bothered at the fact that Fred Hampton or Daniel Kahlua didn't do as much in this film, so they'll give it to him as like a kind of compensation for him not being, as much of a personality within the film. And you were right.
Yeah, because I think if they gave it to if they give it to Lakeith Stanfield, it'd be like, wait, this is meant to be Fred Hampton's movie, and you've taken the story away from him, and you've taken like the award away from the actor who played him.
Yeah,
and focus all this attention on fucking Bill. What's he called? Bill O'Neill, who of course shouldn't be remembered like Fred Hampton. And again, I can see the logic in that, but you've got to put one of them up for best actor. And it would be, which of course I look at the starring Daniel Kahlua is listed above Lakeith Stanfield. Who was the main character in this one?
Yeah, I guess you could say. At the end of the day, if you made a film about Judas and Jesus, the real Messiah, you would argue Jesus would still be the main character.
Judas is first in the title, isn't he?
Yeah, it's true.
Judas, and then the Black Messiah, and that's because the film focuses more on Judas than Fred Hampton, and it's a choice it makes, and we'll get into. Was that the right choice? But yeah, I don't know why Lakeith Stanfield wasn't nominated for Best Actor. Why he wasn't.
To be honest, he was the real victim in all this.
Yes, I do agree. It also got nominated for Best Original Song, Fight For You, by the way. Yes, let's get into the plot. So, Fred Hampton, played by Kahlua, chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party in the late 1960s Chicago. William O'Neill plays an FBI informant, and basically, that's all the plot on Wikipedia goes into. Like, you have this Fred Hampton, and he is, I guess, betrayed by William O'Neill, who is this FBI informant. And the movie goes through Fred Hampton's life, William O'Neill's life, and the FBI's attempts to neutralize, as they say, Fred Hampton. So obviously, right off the bat, with the movie, look, you call the movie Judas and the Black Messiah, and so that's the title. So you immediately know, okay, the snitch, of course, William O'Neill, is going to get a lot of screen time. But people were very annoyed when the movie was released, and this explains why, again, Kahlua may have been a lot for Best Supporting Actor, that, this movie really isn't about Fred Hampton, really. It's not really about him. Obviously, he's in the movie, and he espouses his beliefs, and you can't say, like, you can't... Like, I remember watching the Honest trailer for this film, and they were like, "That doesn't go into the Black Panther Party at all. Like, you end up with as much knowledge as Forrest Gump in that movie."
That's really funny.
And I watched this movie. I'm like, no, that's not the case. You do get a pretty good idea of what Fred Hampton was all about. I don't think you can say that in any way. I think that's unfair criticism.
Yeah, but it is a funny thing to say. You can't argue with that.
Yeah, it is funny. It is funny, but it's not true. And I can understand why people were like, hey, why isn't there enough focus on Fred Hampton, the real hero of the story? Why is there so much attention being paid to William O'Neill, who is, of course, a fucking snitch who got Fred Hampton killed?
Snitches get stitches. Yeah,
like, why, if you're doing a historical biopic, surely you would pay more attention to the guy who, was inspiring people and had a really great message regarding the Rainbow Coalition and all of that stuff. Which of course was later picked up by Jesse Jackson, almost 20 years later, and all that. And it's a he was a real start of a really interesting piece of political history in America. But no, the focus is on fucking William O'Neill most of the time. And here's the thing: going in, I was prepared for it. So that's the thing. Once you've already heard about the movie, you go in, you're prepared for it. You're like, okay, I understand why. They did it, and I'm not as angry about it because I know it's going to happen. And I when I say I understand why they did it, it's because it's really interesting.
I get that too.
Yeah, because if you've got a snitch who's like trying to avoid detection, and the FBI are paying him, and he's like, he's worried he's going to get caught, and he's doing all these things trying to inform the FBI, and then you've got the drama of, will he actually back out of this, or will he still keep being an informant? It's inherently interesting, so it creates an interesting movie. So I understand from a movie perspective why that was in the film, because it's probably more interesting just on the face of it than a Fred Hampton biopic, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, so obviously other example which I can think of, actually there's two examples I can think of, but there was also, they made a Mr. Rogers movie, and like it was about some journalist who was like trying, it doesn't matter what journalist trying to do, but basically the point of it was like, obviously you probably heard of it, it's called like A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and it's like supposed to be a Mr. Rogers biopic basically, but it's actually all filmed from the perspective of like somebody else who kind of interacts with Mr. Rogers. And I think actually, yeah, that is kind of that decision, while obviously sometimes it can be a bit kind of like politically awkward, is kind of an interesting decision to make. The example I can think of where it's politically awkward is, of course, in Green Book, where obviously the story of this Mahershala Ali, I can't actually remember the name of the actual human being, which is embarrassing, but basically his story, the story of this actually really interesting person.
It was Don Shirley, by the way.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, sorry. But yeah, basically the story of this person who's actually really interesting is kind of sidelined, so you can get the story about this admittedly very hilarious character of the racist cab driver. And yeah, I can understand why that's something which bothers people, but in this case, yeah, I don't think there was really any, I think it was just they took that decision because obviously it's kind of a creative way to go with it, explore this person's life through the eyes of somebody else, and in this case the person who betrays him, and it does make for a kind of more compelling narrative, like you say, of like, oh, is he going to get caught, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it was an okay decision.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think they could be more focused on Fred Hampton, and you can still keep the overall story. And to be fair, there is quite a big focus on Hampton. It's not like he's sidelined.
Yeah,
I wouldn't go that far, but I don't necessarily disagree with the portrayal of Fred Hampton. Within basically this William O'Neill story, that's the central story. And Fred Hampton is like in William O'Neill's orbit, and you see some scenes of him, and you do get a sense of what he is and what the Black Panther Party stands for.
Yeah.
But I think that honestly, that's fine. I think you can do a better job with that. But I am fine with the structure of this.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with that because again, it's inherently interesting, and that is, I guess, what movie making is about more than anything. And I think you can still, this movie does a decent job at it, communicating what Fred Hampton was like and what he stood for, and you can do even better. And I think there's no reason why you couldn't with the same structure. So yeah, let's get into the actual scripts now, Michael, the actual movie. So, of course, we start off with this overview with what the Black Panther movement is. Gives a good rundown of why they exist, and of course, then they cut to Fred Hampton being talked about at the FBI, and so immediately, okay, the FBI, they're the bad guys. They're going to stop Fred Hampton, and for me, it's obviously when you come into this movie and you watch it for the first time, you could say, it's the especially Martin Sheen's portrayal of J. Edgar Hoover, which we'll get onto. It may be a bit too evil, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm fine with the movie right from the get go, stating, hey, we're going to be on the side of the Black Panther Party.
Yeah.
So buckle up, and if you don't like it, well, you're probably not going to like this movie, are you?
No, yeah, I did like that, and I don't think that it was, I guess, uncharitable to present this side. I mean, obviously the thing is, it's legitimate to say that, especially with like actual social issues, sometimes going down the side of just making one side super evil can be boring. But in this case, yeah, I don't think it was too boring, especially things. I mean, if you're going to tell a story about racism where one side's just like unequivocally evil, it might as well be the side or the story where an unarmed black man gets executed in his sleep because he said some stuff the government didn't like.
Yes, indeed, and we'll get onto the execution at the end. But yeah, so of course, Bill O'Neill, we're going to start with him because of course he is, if there is a main character in this movie, it is him. And then of course we talk about Fred Hampton after, and then we'll talk about the FBI and Jesse Plemons' character and all of that. So Bill O'Neill is arrested in Chicago after attempting to steal a car while posing as a federal officer. He is approached by FBI Special Agent Roy Mitchell, who offers to have O'Neill's charges dropped if he works undercover for the Bureau. See, I like how they ask him about Malcolm X and MLK.
No, yeah, I like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really nice touch. You're like, hey, did that annoy you? And he what does he say? Like, a little bit, but, I don't really care. And there's the thing, it's clear that right from the get-go, Bill O'Neill, and throughout the movie, he doesn't believe in anything. He doesn't believe in anything. He's a non-political person, Michael.
Yes.
And this is part of the frustration, one of the frustrations I have with this movie, because he is non-political, because he is willing to be a snitch against the Black Panthers for the FBI. Well, obviously that helps the FBI, and there is a inherent reminder with this, character that if you say you aren't political, you basically enforce the oppressive status quo.
Yeah.
Certainly in 1960s in Chicago. And does the movie really go into that too much?
Yeah, it kind of misses it, yeah.
Yeah, I would say not really. Like, why it's so important for, maybe you could have a talk from Hampton, talking about O'Neill. Talking to O'Neill, like at the start when O'Neill's, first becoming a Black Panther, of why, it's so important for, you to be political, because if you are, you stick with this.
Yeah, you're only kind of concerned about your own personal well-being.
Yeah. If you don't challenge the system, then you're hurting yourself, which he is, and basically you're just, there is in society, there is no like non-political person, basically.
Yeah. It's like you're... Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, and the movie doesn't really communicate that well as I think it could, but go on.
Yeah. I mean, it's like your favourite radical feminist Kate Millett said, the personal is political. You can't just say that you've got your own household and your own family and it's just a non-political thing. Women everywhere need to stand up for their own liberation. But yeah, I mean, the one thing I will say I liked is that it kind of shows them at the beginning using kind of the fake FBI badge, which is, obviously reincorporated later in a cool way. But basically, it kind of, in a, I guess, like, thematic sense, I'm not sure if that's the right kind of term, but basically it shows him using the power of the state to benefit himself, or at least, like the implication of the power of the state, because obviously it's like an FBI badge, to benefit himself and hurt other black people. And I thought, like, that's kind of like, in a way, a microcosm of obviously what he ends up doing in the film. He shows his FBI badge and his association with the FBI. He's like, oh, and then he steals from a black person.
Writing for Variety, Peter DeBruge praised Stanfield's performance and said, the powerful film puts the current moment into fresh historical context and suggests that ambivalence can be its own form of betrayal. And that's the thing, like, I think there needs to be more focus on William O'Neill's ambivalence. Like, there is at the start of the movie, and then it just kind of goes away, and it's all about him, like, getting money. And to be fair, you could say getting money is part of the ambivalence, but his motivation to be an informant for the Black Panthers, it needs to be explained why that is basically why him being non-political is itself, a political act. But anyway, let's move on from that, because I do like how it's communicated how O'Neill is basically, I don't really care about politics at all, because of course you have this relationship between the FBI agent and O'Neill, and you have all this revolutionary talk, and it just cuts to their conversations, and it's such a massive switch. Like, and O'Neill can't give a damn about the Black Panthers, and that makes the scene with Hampton just that much more impactful. And later on, when he informs his FBI agent about this, guy pouring, boiling water on a panther, he was an FBI informant. The agent, he goes, oh, just like the KKK, see? He's still trying to convince O'Neill that the Panthers are the bad guys. And the next thing O'Neill says is, hey, I need some serious dope.
Yeah.
And, and obviously the first, when Jesse Plemons invites O'Neill over to his house, and he's asking,
how much
he's
money
saying,
makes.
Hey, but right before that, he just says, hey, they're like the KKK, two sides of the same coin, and then he just goes straight to the money, which I like again. Again, it's communicated well how, ambivalent O'Neill is towards the Panthers. Again, my complaint is it needs to be communicated better why his ambivalence is indeed a form of oppression and enforcing the oppressive status quo. And that's why you can't be that in a society. But yeah, and anyway, I like how that relationship with the FBI and him is fomented early on. What do you think?
No, yeah, definitely. And I kind of, I like the idea of like, you do, you get the impression that he is in it for himself, and obviously, that characterization aspect I think is very well established and very well communicated. Obviously, the kind of, I agree with you that the kind of political analysis of that isn't really that substantial. I'll also say, actually, just on his characterization as well, I don't know exactly how. I was kind of thinking, like, I'm not sure how well handled his shift in characterization from like feeling genuinely conflicted about what he's doing is. I think it's kind of, it's sort of a weird situation in a way, because obviously his main motivation for doing what he does is ambivalence, and therefore it's almost like as soon as he starts to get any indication that there is like an immorality to what he's doing, he becomes conflicted. Whereas, of course, so it's not as if, I guess the alternative would be that like he knows what he's doing is wrong, but he does it anyway because he's only out for himself. And in a way, I think, obviously I don't know the motivations of this actual human being, but it kind of just means that his transition isn't necessarily as interesting from being like, entirely self-interested to slightly conflicted, because all he needs to happen to be slightly conflicted is just to think, oh, actually, yeah, maybe I shouldn't just care about myself all the time. But it doesn't really feel like it's kind of a character arc. I'm not sure what you think about that, but yeah, for me, it kind of seemed like, if I were to explain, like, why does this character go from just only caring about himself to actually feeling like conflicted about what he's doing by the end of it, and why at the end of it isn't he just like, oh, cool, a gas station,
Well,
nice.
it's because the stakes are raised.
Yeah.
Because he thinks at the start it's just a fucking game. Because
Yeah.
I love the scene where he comes out of Panther HQ after a raid and then shouts, "God damn it!" Do you like that?
Yeah.
And gets in the car. And he smiles. Like, he loves tricking people. Like, he enjoys doing what he's doing. Like, it's a fucking, it's a game.
Yeah.
And for him, it doesn't have any, serious consequences. But then,
then it gets more intense.
Then, as the stakes are raised, he doesn't become political. He's not convinced of what the Panthers are doing. Is like, I'm fully on board with the Black Panthers and their ideology. It's not that. It's just like, oh, I have an emotional connection to these characters or to these people, and these characters who I don't disagree. I don't agree with them politically. I don't share their beliefs, but clearly they're good people. They've looked after me, and therefore, and the stakes, and of course it's fine tricking them when hey, that you're just telling them about, you're just giving information to the FBI about, like, I don't know what the fuck, like, they're giving speeches here and here. This is what they're trying to do.
It kind of makes it too real.
Yeah, but then, and you can deal with a raid. Who cares if their offices get raided? But when they fucking, you're getting shot at, and these people are getting shot at, and there's assassination plots, then the stakes are raised, and it gets too much, and that's why he's concerned about him, and why he, again, like, it may be like a typical character arc. You think about it, but it's not really, because he doesn't become convinced by the Panthers. And that's what I love about it, because the thing, it'd feel weird if he, and according to real life, this wasn't the case either. It'd feel weird if he was like convinced by the Panthers and started becoming like a true Black Panther.
Yeah.
No, he just doesn't want to be responsible for people getting murdered, basically.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which is good. I prefer it that way.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Yeah, if he did just like totally, it's like, I've seen the light or whatever, that would be kind of lame. And yeah, I do think it's better that he just ends up, kind of. I mean, yeah, that's kind of the thing. Like, I guess he kind of remains, I guess, a bit cynical throughout the film in a way, but like, obviously the big change is that he just his own self-interest, which is always what motivates him, runs into conflict with the fact that he still has a sense of like moral responsibility, and yeah, I guess you kind of have that aspect. He's probably the kind of guy who like would probably happily be a drug dealer, even though that like dramatically harms people's lives, but he would just kind of be like, it doesn't really matter, like, they're just drug addicts. That's what I imagine him being, like, that kind of. And obviously, if he was a rich white person, he'd probably be the kind of guy who like gives predatory bank loans and stuff. It's just like, if they can't pay it back, it's on them. He's that kind of character, which is an interesting character. Yeah,
no, and that's his ambivalence. His nonchalance to the whole politics of it, and that is good that he thinks that throughout the movie. It's good because it just reinforces the issues. But let's talk about the politics of his situation, because at the end of the movie, do you feel sorry for him, Michael?
Well, I don't know.
Because here's the thing. He was created by the conditions that Fred Hampton was against.
That's a good point.
Yeah, the poverty which forced him to commit the crimes, and then the police have a stranglehold of you, and that's how groups like the Black Panthers, they're doomed really from the start, because they there's always going to be people who are basically in the Black Panthers who can take the easy way out.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
they're attracted to the Black Panthers because of poverty, and if some, if the police come in, like I guess the state, if we're talking in
more general
terms, and the state comes in and say, hey, we're going to keep the status quo, but
you'll benefit.
Yeah, but you'll benefit personally. Hey, it's an easy way out, isn't it? It's the easy way out, and basically becoming a snitch is worth it at the end of the movie. And of course, he kills himself, so it wasn't worth it, I guess, in the end. Even though when did he kill himself again?
1990, I think, because it was like after. Yeah, I think the documentary was in 1990, and then he killed himself when the documentary came out.
Yeah, so like in fucking 20 years. Yeah. So hey, and he owned a gas station. Got some good money on all that. So, hey, snitch is worth it. Is it not? I don't know. But the point is, he commits these crimes because of his material situation, and then
Yeah.
he can't it's like he could change that, of course, if he had a political mindset, and a bunch of people could change that, I guess, with the revolution, which is what Fred Hampton was going for. But it's so much easier if you're the state to pick off people one by one and be like, hey, infiltrate, this the Black Panther Party, and then of course, you can become wealthy and you can get out of that situation. And again, of course, he kills himself at the end, and that's another person that, the oppressed. Well, he kills himself because of the guilt, I guess. That's what he kills himself of, right? We can agree on that.
Yeah, I think that's quite likely.
Yeah. And so again, this power that Fred Hampton was fighting against basically killed someone else. Basically, even though it took 20 years, and hey, it was, it was. You don't really feel sorry for him, I guess, too much. But still, it's like, if we look at the big picture, the material conditions which create, somebody like Bill O'Neill, it's like, oh yeah, these situations of FBI informants will happen. So yeah, it's very difficult, really, to start a group probably like the Black Panthers, and not have FBI informants, because it's so easy just to get out of it like that, get out of why you joined the Black Panthers in the first place. So yeah, I think that whole element is I think is really covered quite nicely, as and it shows why groups like the Black Panthers ultimately would fail.
No, and I mean, obviously the original question was, do I think he was like, do I personally, or do I dislike him, do I think it was immoral, and yeah, I mean, obviously, like I think that it's pretty much one of those cases of how much you want to balance personal responsibility versus systemic causes. At the end of the day, I mean, I think you have to say was,
well, you always go for the latter.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, like, personal responsibility has to have like at least some role in it.
Oh yeah, it has some role. Yeah,
and that's kind of my attitude. Like, obviously, and I don't. In a way, it's kind of like, but I guess where I would kind of ignore the personal responsibility angle is by saying I don't really think it matters whether or not he was like a good person. Like, obviously, the issue is the systemic issues that cause him to get to that point. And yeah, on that note, I agree with you that it does a good job of kind of showing the systemic limitations to the Black Panthers. And of course, it's interesting because obviously, as you pointed out, kind of right at the beginning, there is still, I mean, and as the film itself points out, there's still the Black Panther cubs that exist. There are Black Panther adjacent organizations that exist, but they're not doing so well. So yeah, the reality is there are obviously a lot of limitations to how far you can go when you have so much against you, and obviously, the state has so much it can offer anybody who wants to betray you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and I think it does a good job of showing that.
Yeah, it's just very hard to maintain these movements. Really, it is. But anyway, so let's get on to Fred Hampton.
Yes.
Now, Michael. Yeah. So just before we were talking about, hey, the big picture, of liberation and from your conditions, and why people join the Black Panther movement, and Fred Hampton in this movie, of course, played by Daniel Kahlua, clearly does articulate his beliefs. And the need for revolution, the liberation from oppression, and there's like a couple of mentions of the word capitalism.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
He said, what did he say? He says, like, he has the line, "We're not going to defeat capitalism with black capitalism. We're going to defeat capitalism with socialism." Yeah.
Again, which is something based. That, it truly is based, because that, hopefully, I mean, the movie didn't gross that much, so who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
There are some Black Americans who watch this movie and hear him speak, because that is what he believed. And it's not like, oh yeah, let's make sure we've got some more Black-owned businesses, guys.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, there's still going to be a hierarchy, and naturally, hey, there may be some Black people who make it great. Most won't, because of the nature of capitalism.
Yeah.
And therefore, I do appreciate how clear it is with Fred Hampton, regarding what he's saying right there. Again, I think they could mention it more. Because they only mention it, I think, like twice at the beginning, but at least it's in there. I'm like, okay, it's in there. He says we're going to fight it with socialism as well.
Yeah, there's something actually really, I think you'll enjoy this. I saw a video by Vox about Fred Hampton, and it had a university professor being interviewed, and he said, really, what Fred Hampton wanted was like what they have in Canada. Like, he was basically saying, like, and he was saying, so, like, basically he was saying, like, they just want things like universal healthcare and stuff like that. That's socialism, and it's just like Canada. And I was like, I think Fred Hampton wanted something a little bit more revolutionary than Canada. Like, basically his argument was just that, like, the extent of like Fred Hampton's criticisms of the American economic system was like basically kind of the concerns of, I guess, well, liberals, obviously I know that even not all liberals in the US support, universal healthcare, but yeah, like kind of presenting it as if, obviously Fred Hampton had like concerns about economic justice, but just like that Canada was like the ideal solution. It's like, no, I'm pretty sure they still have lots of issues in Canada.
Yeah, I know. There is a lot of whitewashing, pun intended, I guess, I don't know, regarding civil rights people
Yeah, definitely.
from the 1960s.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's sort of funny. Sorry, I was just going to say, it's kind of funny because you get like kind of Martin Luther King is almost like portrayed as a Republican by some people. So it's kind of like everyone just gets shifted a little bit to the right in a way.
And it happens decades and decades in the making. And Martin Luther King is held up as why you should ban books about slavery. That's how twisted things get. But yeah, essentially they try to whitewash Fred Hampton? Do they try to like tone him down? They do tone him down a bit, I'd say, just a bit, because again, there's not as much there isn't as much language regarding socialism and capitalism and exploitation as there perhaps could be, but at least it's in there.
No, yeah, I do think it's very present.
Yeah, no, I like that. Yeah, so, and let's talk about now Daniel Kahlua. More specific, I want to talk about the speech that Fred Hampton gives. When he gets out of jail and he says you can murder a revolution. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder a revolution. And of course it's a great speech, and it's you see Jesse Plemons and William O'Neill, and O'Neill's like very conflicted. Yeah, exactly. But just Kahlua's acting in that scene is great. He's come so far from parking Pat away.
Yeah, I know, it's really funny that like you are so like you kind of mentioned him and brought him up as like a a person and an actor, and now we are seeing him here. I mean it's a good performance. I mean, I kind of like imagine when you're giving a speech like that, it's kind of like it's quite easy to kind of get into the moment in a way. Like I'm not saying that's like take away, but I'm just like I feel like it's a good opportunity to kind of show off your acting, I guess, and I think you did a good job showing
definitely.
off.
It's a good job. I mean, that's that's the thing you talked before about Lakeith Stanfield maybe deserves it more than Daniel Kahlua.
Well, yeah. So the thing is that I will say this. The main reason I said that is because I was like, you didn't see as much of him, so I was kind of like, I guess. So I was kind of going for like a quantity over quality approach to some extent, just being like, well, he acted a lot more because he was in more central to it. Yeah.
No, I think he's good at it, but again, I don't have a problem with Daniel Kahlua winning, because that you see his performance there, and he's just like, wow, that's fantastic. He really captures the spirit of Fred Hampton, and then all the scenes with his girlfriend and him, talking about the baby. As well, really good scenes as well. And that's the thing, you do get a sense, again, crucially, of what Fred Hampton stood for and what Fred Hampton, the person was like. Even though I did say apparently he was a bit too cold in this movie compared to what he was like in real life. That was one of the criticisms I saw, which, okay, I guess so. But he still seemed pretty friendly sometimes, so it's not maybe the biggest issue. But anyway, this is one of the issues which I do have, which is the whole idea of the Rainbow Coalition. This again, it was explored a bit, but I would love so much if this movie went further. Well, I went deeper, and I've said this maybe a few times, and that is, I guess, my main criticism. Like, if this movie went further into why Fred Hampton was targeted specifically, and it was because of the Rainbow Coalition, and Hampton's incredible oratory skills, formed this multiracial Rainbow Coalition. And that really was that right there. That fucking right there is why the FBI was so keen, or J. Hoover was so keen to take him down. And I don't like when Hoover is on the phone and talking about needing to go further with Hampton, and he's talking to Jesse Plemons about like, oh, this guy is standing up against everything we believe in America, and it's like, it's very general basically. If you go down into the specifics of why the FBI wanted to get rid of Hampton, that would be better. And of course, the specifics are Hampton was forming, like we said, a multiracial Rainbow Coalition, and specifically the FBI and politicians in America, they divide people up based on their race, because it's easy then. What's that famous fucking quote from Lyndon Johnson, Michael? It's easier. What is it? You can convince a white man.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's something. Yeah, it's something about like a white man. Yeah, it's like you can treat a white man like shit as long as you still think he's better than the black man. Yeah, I can't remember what it is. It's like it's. I wish I could remember what it is, but yeah.
Yeah, and that was the crucial fucking point of it. Like, America is so divided by race. It is, and it's, of course, it still fucking is to this day. But And when people were saying, oh, it's a very timely movie, I'm like, well, yeah, I guess it is a very timely movie. It's always fucking timely in America to have a movie about race relations, but especially, in the after the Black Lives Matter movement. But with Fred Hampton, it was more about not just standing up to police brutality, like why he was famous, why he was specifically targeted. Wasn't just because of his oratory skills. It was because he had the ability to bring people together from different backgrounds, and that is, it is basically, again, I talked about Jesse Jackson in 1988. Like that was his political campaign, to trying to become the Democratic presidential nominee. And of course, fucking, Fred Hampton was the genesis of it. And I would love, do you agree, Michael? I would love if they went deeper into why Fred Hampton was such a unique threat in that regard because of this Rainbow Coalition.
No, yeah, definitely. I think, and also, I mean, I think to an extent, this film could have had like a bit more of a kind of, a bit more of a black pill to it. This film obviously is to some extent, and what I mean by that is kind of like just recognizing how it is that because Fred Hampton was so close to actually like achieving something, or like what he was advocating for could really achieve something, made a difference. That's why they had to kill him, because they knew, like, you put him in prison for 5 years, he's getting out, and like the reality is his message works. And obviously, you can kind of extrapolate that out to realize that essentially, as the more effective somebody seems like they might be at taking down capitalism, the more extreme the measures are going to be to stop them doing what they're doing. So if it's somebody like, and I don't, obviously capitalism is kind of a broad thing, but like, let's just say the excesses of capitalism, because obviously you had somebody like Bernie Sanders, who obviously, was not like a full-on kind of communist revolutionary, but definitely opposed a huge amount of like the bad stuff in capitalism and like the elite. And obviously in his case, it was just like subterfuge and stuff like that, like nobody assassinated him. But then obviously when you go to somebody like Fred Hampton, who actually had a genuine chance at really mobilizing popular support for an anti-capitalist movement, they were like, well, there's just no way we're going to be able to beat him apart from just to kill him. And yeah, that kind of seems like, you might ask, well, what if we had another Fred Hampton? But the reality is that I don't think there's any assurance at all that if there was another Fred Hampton, he wouldn't just be killed. And of course, the other point to bear in mind is that it does seem like, we haven't had that many people like Fred Hampton in terms of so effectively mobilizing people together. And I think, yeah, that would have been a good thing to touch on. And yeah, this is kind of what you mentioned, the uniqueness of the fact that this was somebody who was so able to do this thing. And that's why it was so kind of devastating. And like the fact that, you might think, well, the Black Panthers had a good thing going. Why didn't they just keep going along? And the answer is, well, because they needed that person who was able to, kind of center the message. Yeah.
Yeah, he knew the direction they should be going in. Yeah. And again, like, that's the thing. He's not Malcolm X. It's Fred Hampton. He's not Martin Luther King Jr. Because Martin Luther King Jr., of course, he talks about racial harmony. Yeah. But Fred Hampton was more specific with it, I guess. And Malcolm X, of course, didn't believe in the Rainbow Coalition. He wasn't like that. So that's the thing. Like, but the FBI talk about him like he is Malcolm X. Like he's a threat to everything America stands for. And you could say that again about Malcolm X. I guess you could say it about MLK. But I wish they'd be more specific because he is different to those characters. And it's unfortunate they didn't go deeper into why the FBI targeted him. But yeah, again, maybe they don't need to because he's a black civil rights leader, he's popular, let's just fucking kill him anyway. Maybe that's what the FBI genuinely thought. But from our perspective, it's clear that he offered something different, and perhaps why they were, because he wasn't as famous, of course, as Malcolm X or MLK. Like, why were they so keen to get rid of him? But anyway, so the FBI, of course, is very keen to stress. We're on to the FBI now.
Yes.
So Jesse Plemons, of course, plays Roy Mitchell, the FBI agent, who is very keen to stress the Black Panther Party is like the KKK. And I like that he says that because, he starts off, I guess, in this movie as a rational centrist on this issue, tries to convince O'Neill that, they're the good guys in the middle. You've got two sides of the same coin, like he says. You've got the extremes of the KKK, the extremes of the Black Panther Party. Like it's, we're trying to, basically make sure that everyone is, the extremes squash in American society, and everyone can just, live happily. Like you can't shoot your way to equality of whatever he says. The Black Panther Party, they're a bad bunch of people. You can't, they're not good, and you can see his logic for that. And, later on when he informs, the FBI agent, O'Neill does, about, the guy pouring boiling water on this Panther who was an FBI informant, Roy Mitchell, the FBI agent... Well,
of course, we actually know he wasn't an FBI informant.
Yeah, exactly. But he says, hey, they're just like the KKK. And he's, of course, still trying to convince O'Neill that these are the bad guys. But the crucial thing is he genuinely believes that.
No, yeah.
That's the crucial. He genuinely believes that, and he genuinely believes he is the good guy.
Yeah.
And that's great because
Yeah.
his character arc in this movie is the cop who, or the FBI agent, the agent of the state, who thinks he is doing something right by basically cracking down on the Black Panthers, because he does genuinely believe that, like, two sides of the same coin, and he believes he's in the right, and of course the FBI then inform him that one of the other agents informs him that anytime this what's he called, George Sands, is that it?
Yeah, George Sands.
Yeah, walks into a Panther office, they can go and raid the office and say they are harboring a fugitive, and of course Jesse Plemons' character is like, well, wait, so we're just letting him murder?
Yeah,
we're working with a murderer now, and so then he becomes more skeptical of his position. It's like, okay, so we're maybe not so much the good guys. And then, of course, we get to the scene with Martin Sheen, who, by the way, I said before, he's evil. I love how evil he is in this movie.
Yeah.
It's really, I love his look. I love his performance. I love Martin Sheen in this. He's great. And he asks, of course, Jesse Plemons, what will you do if your daughter brings home a black boy whilst he is dating them? And then it becomes obvious that, he has a choice to make. And of course, what path does he go down, Michael?
Well, he says that she wouldn't do it.
She wouldn't do it. She wouldn't do it. So again, it's the thing is, he goes down this path where he thinks he's doing the right things, but he realizes that if you, like, the job entails being an FBI agent, doing really shitty things. And of course, with the fucking working with a murderer and then just being outwardly racist, and he's like, I can't, like, he understands basically, I can't be, a good cop anymore. Like, I can't do that. I can't, and that is how the system snuffs out so-called good cops. That's how, and then this is a perfect example in this movie of how that stuff happens. I wouldn't say he's, like, in the right anyway.
Yeah.
Like, he's not from the beginning, but he thinks he's in the right. Like, he thinks what he's doing is right. And then throughout the course of the movie, it's like, I now realize what I'm doing isn't right, but I don't care because I still have, or I don't care about that anymore because I'm still doing my job, basically. The system consumes him, basically, Michael.
Yeah.
As it were, yes.
No, yeah, and I mean, I'll agree with you that I actually, genuinely really do like the fact that he starts off being like, well, they're both sides are bad. I mean, literally, that is the classic enlightened centrist position. Well,
yes.
Both sides are bad. Both sides are getting angry about stuff, kind of ignoring what it is. Like, one side's angry because they can't own slaves anymore. The other side's angry because of, like, years of racial injustice. But yeah, like, that's the thing. Like, that attitude is, of course, incredibly common, and it's nice to see the attitude portrayed. And obviously, this isn't an example of, like, trying to portray a racist to sympathetic. It's an example of trying to portray a racist realistically, or a racist. Again, it depends how you mean that. How liberal you want to be with that.
I mean, he wouldn't have joined the FBI if he didn't already think what he thought. So
exactly.
So you have to have a certain mindset to join, like, the FBI. This is his mindset, but he still believes he's, hey, I'm for the good guys.
Well, I mean, he has that line about how, like, and it's a legitimate point. He says, well, working with the FBI, I helped to counter the Klan, which is definitely true. I mean, obviously, like, the FBI, by no means great, but I mean, obviously, also there was the Black Klansman film about, and I think that was about the FBI too. And it was obviously about the FBI again, countering the Klan. And yeah, obviously the FBI.
Was it? I believe it was just the Colorado.
Okay, yeah, was it? Yeah, I was trying to remember. I wasn't sure. Yeah, I might have been wrong there. So okay, yeah, maybe not. But like, obviously, it's true that obviously sometimes very bad people will do very illegal things, and therefore the FBI will still actually make an effort to counter them if it's like the Klan torturing a bunch of people. And yeah, so he's kind of saying, hey, when there were some bad things being done down south by the Klan, we actually did go down there and make an effort to stop it, which I think the FBI probably would actually do that.
I mean, they do it. They do it around the edges, basically.
Yeah.
The big cases, I imagine they'd step in because, hey, it's good PR, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you about the PR thing. Yeah, like, obviously, like ultimately, I don't think the FBI's main motivation is to exactly maintain racism. I mean, well, they do want to maintain racism, but like they don't want racism to win. The FBI's main motivation, I guess, is to, like you kind of already said, keep people divided and stuff like that.
Yeah, keep the status quo. And if one side goes too far, like the KKK, then all of a sudden, oh shit, you have more sympathy for
so they got to
black
keep
people.
the KKK in order.
Keep them in order and portray black people as the extremes. The extremists basically. They have a good motivation to do that. But I do think that the crucial thing again with this character is like he
kind of changes. He becomes evil.
That's the thing. He does, because hey, you have people probably in police forces across America and indeed across the world, who like go in having this mindset, and then slowly they realize, oh, I have to be the bad guy, I guess, if we want to succeed. And they do, because, well, they're too deep in anyway, and again, the system kind of just... So even if they're not like a fucking J. Edgar Hoover, it doesn't matter, because they eventually become him, because he's at, of course, the top of the system.
Also, actually, the other thing I just want to say is, like, I thought he had a line which I thought was interesting, which is when he said, like, you don't have to understand, Bill. Like, they're at the restaurant, and Phil's like, I don't understand. Like, obviously he's asking for the blueprints, like, I don't understand. And he's like, you don't have to understand, Bill. And I kind of, I thought that line was kind of interesting, and again, it's kind of, I guess, I'm not sure if that line was supposed to be kind of actually getting to something a bit deeper, but obviously you could say, well, ultimately, it is true. You don't have to understand. Like, basically, you just obey orders. So what he's saying literally is true. As far as the self-interested people are concerned.
Well, before he was trying to convince Bill, wasn't he? It's like, and now he's just like, no, you don't have to understand. I don't care about, you're, like, trying to get you motivated. No, you're just doing what I say. And that's his character arc. Like, that's how he becomes, I guess, the bad guy fully. And again, he's planning an assassination in this civilized restaurant, which I love as well. Like, we're civilized, and we're planning to assassinate this person for, just speaking against the government, for saying stuff that the government doesn't like. But anyway, Michael, let's conclude now, shall we? Oh, of course, we have to talk about the death scene, I guess.
Yes, of course.
It's bad, isn't it? Obviously, the Chicago PD showing their true colours, and again, it's nice to see
he's good and dead now.
Yes, it's nice to see, wouldn't you say, this the horror of American policing fully get exposed any way it can, right?
No, yeah, I mean, obviously it's not really surprising that they could just get away with this. And it's good to just see it. Well, I mean, obviously it's not, it's weird to say it's good, but it's, kind of, there's no good word to say it's good, but basically, obviously it's good to see it being so honest and portrayed like, this is just how it is. That's the reality. Okay, that's what they do a lot of the time.
It is. Anyway, shall we conclude now, Michael? You go first.
Yes. All right. This film is, like we kind of already said, it's good in that it takes this life of Fred Hampton, and of course we didn't have a historical accuracy section here, and the simple reason for that is because this film, as far as I can tell, is pretty much entirely historically accurate. There's nothing added to it, and I mean, obviously, I'm sure there's like some narrative liberties just to make it flow well, but yeah, it's good. And obviously it even corrected the historical inaccuracy of Chicago 7. It's, with that said, obviously, it's an accurate retelling of the story of this very interesting person, and that inherently makes it quite interesting. It kind of, again, based on the fact it's attached to this interesting person, Fred Hampton, touches on some interesting thematic stuff. But obviously, one of the kind of limitations in terms of like giving this film kudos as a film is that a lot of the themes and story is attached to just the real people who it's about. But obviously, it's still, they had to make that decision to actually tell the story and tell it accurately. And of course, plenty of biopics don't do that. But they do actually, I think, introduce some other kind of interesting thematic elements with, obviously, like we already touched on there, the FBI character and how the kind of FBI works. So they definitely do add some stuff to it, and what they do add is good. I'm thinking, I'm feeling, it's very good. I'm feeling a low 8. That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking like it's a good film, very good. Well made, but obviously, in order for it to get kind of into the 9s or 10s, for me, it would kind of have to bring some kind of exceptional filmmaking to the table, and I don't think it really did that.
I think I'm going to give it an 8.5. I think.
Yeah,
I'm going to give it an 8.5. So yeah, again, I like how, of course, the movie. I mean, it's a movie I broadly agree with, like we said, and it's an interesting story. I'm fine with the focus on William O'Neill. I just think they could have focused more on Fred Hampton, why the Rainbow Coalition was specifically such a threat. And they could also focus on why, the ambivalence of Bill O'Neill was so was the central issue, as to why he became he became Judas, as it were. And so and of course I do like the FBI, agent's character arc. I think that's very good. It does display how I'm a good cop. Like when fucking Biden, who I just use him because he's the president of the US now, of course, gets up on stage and says, "Hey, there's good cops around. They go into their jobs. They want to do good, just like the Jesse Plemons character. They think they're doing the right thing, and they genuinely do. But then eventually, the system will get you, and you'll do horrible things." I am going to say 8.5 out of 10 for me. Could be a bit better, but overall, a very, very solid movie. No surprise it got nominated for Best Picture last year. So, Michael, all that is left to do now, of course, is for us to evaluate who did better last week, because, of course, we guessed.
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes.
I looked at the Rotten Tomatoes score a while ago, but I couldn't remember what I guessed. So I was just like,
what was it when you looked?
It was 84 when I looked.
Oh, 84. Okay. So
Which
here's
I
the thing.
think you might have guessed that. But
I did guess 84. You guessed 88. Now looking at it right now, because this is what we do. Again, another time I've been fucked over by looking at it.
That's
on the
really funny.
Apparently, I've only been fucked over by one, so it's not that big a deal.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? It's fucked over by two, because now, of course, since it's 85, I get a point, you get 3 points. The gap between us is 2, and if it had been 84, the gap would have been 4. So, it's technically I've been fucked over by a couple of points. But anyway, that's the situation now. I'm beating you 1-3, because lower is better, and we will see if I can reclaim my crown this year. And I am off to a rip-roaring. So I tell you what, obviously, we both guessed around the same. But how about that? How good are we?
It's pretty good.
How I remember at the back end of 2021, our guesses were so close. I hit the exact right one on West Side Story, for instance. Yeah, and it was just the fucking Matrix which let me down. But we're good at this. I think you were 3 off, I was 1 off. So
I'm better than I am with the budget and box office.
that is the truth, unfortunately for you. But anyway, Michael, actually, you'd rather be better at this, right? Because it's
this matters more.
Yeah, because this does matter. So let's talk about what we are doing next week. You tell us, Michael.
Yeah, next week we're doing Mank. No big introduction there. Just it's another film that was nominated for Best Picture about a film which won Best Picture. So there's a fact.
Indeed. And of course, we reviewed Citizen Kane earlier, didn't we?
Yeah, it's all coming together.
It is all coming together. So thank you for listening. We have been selecting and reflecting on Judas and the Black Messiah. Join us next week for Judas and the White Messiah. He wasn't really he made good movies, but he wasn't really the white.
Also, he was Slavic, and let's be honest, they're not really,
And Jewish, right, with that name?
Yeah. I think so.
Really
I think he was a Polish Jew. What would a Polish Jew be doing around America in the 1940s?
Oh, I don't know. Anyway, so join us next week for Mank. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.